Alright guys, so it is day 3 of Nofap for me. It's actually almost day 4. It'll tick over into day 4 in about 5 minutes. So I wanted to just press record. I've just come out of the gym and I'm on my way home. So I thought I'd stop off and make this video. It's currently 1 o'clock in the morning, so late night one. But, you know, let's do it. Day 3 was good, feeling good, had good energy and things like that, which again I think really is a lot down to intermittent fasting. But yeah, only on day 3, so it's very, very early days, but I haven't really had any urges yet, which is good because, it's nice to get a few days under your belt and have something built before the struggle comes up. I think a big part of the reason why I haven't had any urges was because just prior to this Nofap streak, I've been going pretty hard on the PMO for a couple of months actually. So I think I was getting to that point actually where I was getting bored of it. It was like, oh, there weren't any scenes that were interesting me or anything like that. Obviously I knew I needed to stop as well. But yeah, I think that's contributed to the fact that there's no urges yet, but I know they're going to come, and we've got to batten down the hatches. But anyway, onto the topic of this video, which is something that I think is really important when we're discussing Nofap and its benefits. Erectile dysfunction. Okay, so I want to just give you my personal experience, which is all I can really do. But I can tell you that in my case, Nofap cured my erectile dysfunction problems. So I actually had 3 separate problems really when it came to my PMO usage, because I started at a young age, quite young. I was 14, and I started on quite heavy content, actually, which isn't great, and I was quite a heavy user. So when I first started, from when I was 14 all the way up until about probably 19 or 20, I was probably 5 times a day at least. And then from 20 up until like 23, when I started Nofap, probably still at least 3 times a day on average. And this really caused 3 problems for me. The first problem was actually a lack of any real sex drive. So I almost was sort of asexual when it came to the idea of sex in the real world and associating sex with real women. My whole sex drive was consumed by porn, which was a huge problem, and I want to do a video on that subject itself one day, because I don't think it's something that gets discussed all that often, but for me it was like a really big negative thing. Part 2 was porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which I did have. I didn't have it as severe as everybody gets it, but my I guess hardness rating would have been 60%, maybe 70% on a really good day. And part 3 was death grip syndrome, and delayed ejaculation. If you don't know what death grip syndrome is, it's basically where your penis just becomes numb, because it's been thrashed so much and so regularly that your nerves just become desensitized. So how did I notice this problem? Obviously I talked about in one of my other videos that sex, while I have had sex in my life, it's been pretty rare up until this point. So when I was younger, like 16, and I had my first girlfriend, we had sex like a few times and stuff, and everything worked like pretty fine. And then after I broke up with her, I had sex like a couple more times with a couple of different girls, and then I went, because at this point my social anxiety was just getting worse and worse, and you know, everything really was just getting worse and worse, and I went into like a 4-year dry spell, 4 years with no sexual activity whatsoever. And a couple of years ago, I broke that streak. Found a girl that was actually willing to come home with me for whatever reason. Got into bed, and you know, trigger warning here, guys. We're going to talk about sexual stuff. So if you can't handle that, click the video off now. Got into bed, and she started giving me a blowjob, and this was a girl that I was attracted to as well, I have to say. Very attracted to. She was very cute. I got really lucky, especially considering my game at the time, but alcohol and other circumstances, just, you know, the cars aligned. So she starts giving me a blowjob, and I got like sort of hard, but I really could like barely feel anything. And I thought that was like really, really odd, like, and that's the death grip part. So, you know, I've got a beautiful girl giving me a blowjob, and I'm not feeling anything. And then after that, so obviously, you know, we play around for a little bit, and then we go to actually have sex, and I just lose my erection, just gone. Very, very embarrassing for me. You know, needless to say, I didn't really hear from that girl again, because I kind of freaked out about things as well, and that. And at the time, I didn't really know like what was up. I put it down to a combination of alcohol, the fact that at the time I was going through some depression, because this was before I had kind of awakened on self-improvement, and just like my general health and stuff, like, you know, obviously I smoke and things like that, and I thought, oh, it must be, you know, alcohol and cigarettes. But if you're a guy like if you're a guy really that's like under 40, these things should not stop you from getting an erection with a beautiful woman. Like, it just shouldn't. But that was what I put it down to. And then probably around 4 months later, I got into another situation which was kind of crazy, yeah, went to have sex again, and the exact same thing happened. And this time I hadn't drunk, I didn't really have any depression, and I was sort of eating healthier and things like that, and so I was just like, oh man, what is going on? And that was when I like Googled, and I actually Googled that, like, I couldn't about the lack of sensation, and that was when I found out about death grip, and that was actually what prompted me to start Nofap. Should point out that, like, in the time between the first and the second girl, I had started to learn game, which we'll talk about that later. But I started to learn like game and attraction skills and pickup, and I had just started on my self-improvement stuff. So yeah, this was at the start of the journey for that, really. And then I found Nofap. Okay, so I start Nofap, and within 28 days I had seen a lot of like drastic Nofap improvements, like confidence and energy and all that stuff. And a girl that I had known for like over a year, by like week 3 was like already starting to flirt with me and things like that. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy, because she'd never shown any interest in me before. And she even was saying things like, you know, I don't know like what's changed, but like suddenly I find you super attractive and things. And I would just point out, like, I myself wasn't super into this girl. She was okay, like, and I got on real well with her, but I was on Nofap, so I was really, really horny for like the first time in my life, and I was on like day 28, And anyway, long story short, we end up hooking up, and she starts giving me a blowjob, and the first thing that I notice is that A, it feels amazing, and B, I am fully rock hard. And yeah, she gave me like a blowjob, and then we had sex. I didn't orgasm though, because yeah, I was really early into my journey, and I didn't want to. So like, I had sex but didn't come to orgasm. And yeah, we hooked up a few more times after that, and everything worked fine. Yeah, no problems at all. Started to get like morning wood for the first time in years, and everything was great, back to normal. And then obviously, as you guys know from my first couple of videos, I've been like on and off of Nofap for like the last pretty much the last year, really. It's been about a year since I found it. And yeah, I definitely noticed that when I go off of Nofap and start fapping again, morning wood goes, and downstairs it doesn't perform the way it's meant to. So from my personal experience, Nofap does cure any problems that I have down there. If you do have ED, I really recommend that you give Nofap a try. It can take longer for certain people, like if you've been going for like even longer than I have, or you used harder stuff, or just like by luck of the draw, sometimes it can take people longer. So, you know, I recommend that you try the 90-day trial, but at the very least give it like a month to 50 days and see what's happening. And if it doesn't help you, there's, you know, obviously possibilities that there's other medical problems that's causing it. So you can go see your doctor, or look into, you know, your overall health. Like if you're just living on fast food and you smoke a hell of a lot, and you overweight and no exercise and all this kind of stuff, that obviously can have an effect. So, but I think, yeah, the whole point is, first things first, do Nofap for at least 30 days, see if it makes a difference, because I'm like 99% sure that it will. Yeah, so that's everything for today. Hopefully that helps some people. Have a good day, guys. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.